Hi, and welcome to another video by Jimthecarguy. Today we're going to be working on a 2004, it's a Honda Element. The customer complaint is that there's a rattling noise in the front end when they drive it and they go over bumps. After checking the front end out, I see that everything in the front end is good except on top of the strut plates themselves, on top of the strut I should say, there's a bearing plate. That bearing plate, the inside center rubber section of it is worn out so that the strut moves around in the bearing plate. So what we're going to do is we're going to be replacing the strut and we're going to be replacing the bearing plate. And the reason we're going to be changing the strut is because you've got to take the strut out of the vehicle anyway to put the bearing plate on it, and the truck has got well over 100,000 miles on it, so it's logical to replace the strut at the same time. So I took the left side apart already, but I'm going to show you the right side now, how it comes apart and the proper procedure to do it without hurting yourself or causing more damage. So let me get up there. I'm going to show you exactly what to do step by step, and with this one here, you're also going to need a press to press the spring together so that you can remove it from the old strut and put it onto the new strut with the new bearing plate. If you don't have a press, then once you take the strut assembly out, you can bring it to the big auto parts stores, and most of the time they'll charge you a fee to switch the spring over onto the strut, because this particular vehicle does not come the quick struts, which is the strut, the spring, and the bearing plate as an assembly. So let's get up there and let's get this job wrapped up and out the door. Okay, so now this is the strut assembly here. We're going to be removing it from the car, and we'll put it into the machine and we'll compress it. First thing we're going to do is we're going to remove this tie rod end right here. We're going to take this cotter pin out, remove this nut. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove all of the ABS sensors that are in here, and we're going to relocate them to the side. We are also going to remove this brake hose right here because the brake hose is attached to the strut. We're just going to remove it for now and just step that off to the side, and that'll give us a little bit more room to work right here. Then we're going to remove these two bolts right here, and we're going to push the bolts out. They should pop out fairly easy. Most of them always do. We'll push these out, and then we'll release the strut from the knuckle itself. Next thing we're going to do after we do that is we're going to come up to the top up here, and we're going to remove these bolts right here. This one, and this one. Do not remove that bolt right there. Remove that bolt, you're going to have a really big problem. So be careful. Don't remove that one. And after we do that, we'll put it into the strut machine, which is actually this here, and we'll compress the spring so that we can take the strut out and replace it with a new one. But I'll show you that with this one once I get it out of the car. All right, let's grab some tools and I'll set everything up and let's get started. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the cotter pin from the tie rod end here. And the way to do that is you just obviously just move it up, and you can release the back up like that. You grab with a pair of pliers in here, and you pull the cotter pin out just like that. All right. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take off this tie rod end right here, and the way we're going to go about doing that, I have an air gun. Obviously, you're going to be doing it on the street. You're not gonna. But take that nut off. Don't lose the nut because we're going to need it again to put it back together. Now, the way I separate these tie rod ends, what you do is you take a hammer and you just bang right here pretty firmly, and you'll see that this will pop up. So here we go. Okay. Not a lot of banging. It just pops right up and out there. Alright, we need to leave that off to the side for now. Alright, next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the, looks like some of these zip tie is on here. The anti-lock brake cables are actually zip tied on here, so we're going to remove just the zip tie. Watch, you don't cut the cable, just cut the zip tie and get it out of there. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove this bolt right here. It's a 10 millimeter. You can take that off and take that bracket out of the way. And the reason I cut that zip tie off is because it was right over the top of that nut. Okay, so we take that out. bracket hanging like that for now. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the brake line that's attached right here. We'll just leave this off to the side for now. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove these nuts right here that go through the lower part of the strut that hold it in place. I hope you can see okay. I hope the light's not blinding you. If you have an air gun, fine. If you don't, you can do it by hand also. Hold the nut on this side here. And just air gun it off. Same thing on the next one up on top here. Air gun it off. Don't lose any of that stuff. We're going to need it to put it back together. Now you have the nuts loose, you can take these out. Same thing on the bottom, pulls right out. And I want to just point out, you have to be careful that this doesn't hang by itself, because if this falls all the way out, you can pull the tripod apart on the transmission. So what I always do is just secure it back up and out of the way to hold it back a little bit. It may not hold it perfectly, but it's something. Keeps it up and out of the way like that. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to go up to the top, and we're going to add in those bolts out up on the top. I'll show you where they are. Those bolts right here. This one, and this one. And then we're going to pull the strut out. So I'm going to let you watch from this angle here. All right. Okay, now if you have it loose, I left one nut partially screwed on. I just lift it up a little bit. And then you can remove it right out of the car, like this. And that is your strut assembly. So now what I'll do is I'm going to put this into the machine and compress the spring. But basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be switching over the top of the bearing plate. We're going to change. We're going to keep the spring, and we're going to change the strut. So let me put it in the machine, and then we'll come right back, and I'll show you how to do that. Switch this over then, because you need to have this machine, of course. But basically what you do is you wind this up in the machine. Like this, like this. Make sure that the top is flat. Right? Close this down, and now we're going to be switching the bearing plate over. So what you want to do is you want to put these clamps underneath the bearing plate and hold that top of the spring down. If you do it any other way, it's going to be a little bit of a pain in the rear end later on for you. All right, now, when you get these machines, they give you these tools like this here, which is supposed to clip on here to keep this spring from rotating. From past experience, I don't use these things. I put a pair of vice grips on there. I can lock it a lot tighter than that is going to hold it, because when you hit it with the air gun, sometimes it'll rotate the whole thing right out. All right? Compress it down until the spring comes away from the strut, like this. Okay? Then you use an air gun, and you take the nut off, hold the spring, hold the shock, the strut to the spring before you shoot it off. And we're just going to discard this because we're going to be replacing it. We're going to change the bearing plate also. And then just take your strut, pull it out, like this. And then we'll grab our replacement and put it right back together. I just want to point out that this boot up on top right here, it's a dust boot. This comes right off the old strut, and we put this onto the new strut. The new strut comes like this. You just have to turn it to get it to pop up, and then you put your new boot over the top like that. And you reinstall your spring, your strut through your spring. There's only one way it can go. The spring has got to line up right into this piece right here. Grab our new bearing plate. Make sure you use your bearings. And you put your plate back on for now. We're going to reset this later on in the right direction, but for now we're just going to screw it on with the nut. And then we're going to hold this in place there. And we're going to air gun it back on. Nice and tight. Okay, you just turn your spring until it lines up with that little notch that I told you about, and you release the pressure on the spring. Trash, you don't need this. Slide this over. This doesn't really matter because this you can turn. This turns any way you want to, so it's okay. And we can take this off. And now we're ready to reinstall it into the car. So let's just set up over there, and we're going to put this job back together. Okay, and the way you put the strut back in is you remember that the opening here, this opening, goes towards the knuckle right here. So we're going to put this back up in there. And we're going to put this up through the top, and then we're going to put the nuts on here loosely, and then we'll come back down and we'll get this here wrapped up down here. Like bottom. Okay. What we'll do is we'll just remove that zip tie that was holding it, not the zip tie, the bungee cord that was holding it in place here. Take the bungee cord that you had in there and just put it off to the side now. We don't really need it. Now this, we're we're going to put back in here just temporarily. We'll just reinstall the knuckle back through the strut. We lift it up, the bolt right through it. And then play around a little bit to get it through. And back. Same thing on the bottom, you may have to push it to get it through. And we're just going to catch everything loosely now. We're not going to do anything tight. I'll show you what I did up top. So you just put those bolts on loosely. I didn't tighten them in all the way. They're just very loose now. Alright, so now we're going to put the rest of it back together. Okay, now once we've got this caught loosely in here, we just have everything in there loose. We don't have anything tight. This. We're going to catch that bolt that holds the brake line in place. And again, we're not going to tighten it up. We're just going to catch it for now. Alright. And this we'll put back on momentarily as soon as I tighten everything else up. Alright, next thing we're going to do now is we're going to tighten up these bolts. We'll hold it with this side here, and you shoot it in with the air gun. Obviously, if you don't have an air gun, you can do it by hand. It's a little bit harder, though. Next thing we're going to do is reinstall our tie rod end. This you want to be careful. You don't want to shoot this on too tight to break it. Just snug it in for now. With a wrench or whatever, just to make sure it's tight. And then you can replace your cotter pin back through it. Like that. Bend your cotter pin so that it won't come back out. Alright, and now we're going to tighten up this bolt right here that holds the brake line in place. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to reattach this bracket that holds the ABS system in place. That's a 10 millimeter. We're just going to tighten that up till it's tight. Don't tighten it too tight, just snug it in there, that's all. I'm going to grab a zip tie and zip tie this back on because it was broken before, so we're going to put that back the same way it came off. I'll show you what we're going to do up here. Next thing we're going to do up here is we're going to tighten those bolts up, those 3 bolts. We're going to shoot them down. Don't tighten it too tight and break them. Just be careful when you tighten them in. You don't want to snap it. I always shoot them in a certain distance and then, come back and tighten it up with a ratchet. Just to make sure that you're not going to snap it. Alright, so now we're all set. We're just going to tighten this up with a ratchet to make sure it's tight. We know that this is tight because we air gunned it on over in the machine. Let's go over this here. Alright, we know that the tie rod end is tight because we did tighten it up. We checked it with a wrench. We put our cotter pin back through it. We tightened up our 2 bolts on the strut. The 2 lower bolts on the strut, we tightened them up. Our brake line, we secured that up and out of the way. We reattached our bracket right here in the back. And the last thing we're going to do is zip tie this piece back onto here. And that's it. We're going to wrap it up. We're going to do the same thing on the other side and finish that up, of course. And then we're going to get the alignment reset on this at the same time. All right, thanks for watching. Any questions or comments, you drop me a line. Be more than happy to talk to you about anything. As always, thanks for watching. See you on the next one.